Welcome to the 6th Annual GPCA Forum here in Dubai. I'm talking here to Ben van Beurden, Executive Vice President for Chemicals at Shell. Ben, you've recently signed a deal in Qatar to progress your involvement there. Can you explain that in detail and then how that fits into your broader Middle East position?
Yeah, we are incredibly happy with the deal that we signed in Qatar, the heads of agreement to develop a world-scale petrochemical complex in Ras Laffan. Qatar, of course, is an incredibly important country for Shell. We have been investing tremendously in LNG, into gas to liquids, and now to sort of complete the value chain also in petrochemicals. So we consider Qatar a major growth area for us as well, and therefore we're very, very keen to add a new leg to that growth strategy. It will be a joint venture with QP, of course. It will be unique in a number of ways. It will, in one fell swoop, be the largest petrochemicals complex in Qatar. It will have the largest MEG plant globally at 1.5 million tons. And it will be a liquids-only project in terms of products. So we will not be producing polyolefins, we will be producing glycols, oxo-alcohols and alpha-olefins. So in that sense it's also quite a novelty. And the nice thing is it will have the ability to then also add further downstream investments to it. If you think of high purity EO, alcohols, detergents, so moving a little bit further downstream than traditionally is possible with polyolefins.
The theme of this year's event is the move downstream in the region. Is this important to Shell, and how does that fit in with your strategy and the overall region?
Of course, it's incredibly important. If you think of this region in a relatively short period of time, if you look at the historic timescales, has established itself as a major supply center for the world. If you look at sort of middle of this decade, this region will be supplying 20% of the world petrochemical demand. And that's great. I think it is a great bonus for this region to use its resource to that effect. But then at the same time, you have to ask yourself the question, well, what is next? What is more? Is this just going to be producing petrochemicals for the rest of the world? Or can we add more value to petrochemicals to, first of all, serve what is actually quite a large regional market as well, but then also to attract other industries and basically add more value, add more economic activity, add more employment, and therefore actually leverage the resource that they have a whole lot better than what we have been doing so far.
So that tells me Shell's keen to invest in the region further?
Oh yes, the Middle East is a very important region for us. And of course, think of Shell not just as a chemicals company. We are of course an integrated oil, gas and chemicals company with a long heritage in this region. We have been in this region for many, many years. In petrochemicals only for 20 years, producing and selling for longer. But we have been a key player in this region in other parts of our business for a long time. So we consider this region very, very important to the long-term strategy of Shell.
So I'd like to widen the discussion out to your global strategy now. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So if you are a petrochemicals player like we are, part of a large oil and gas company, you have to really understand what your strategy should be and where do you derive strength from. And we derive strength, of course, from integration with the upstream part of our portfolio, upstream being either refining or true upstream like exploration, production, gas, etc. So for us, the whole trick is how do we create enterprise projects, integrated value chain projects, ideally all the way from the wellhead down to an end consumer or to a large industrial consumer. And our strategy therefore has very much been focusing on that as well. So we consider ourselves within the Shell portfolio the highly profitable hydrocarbon upgrader. So it is all about getting relatively low alternative value streams out of refining systems, out of upstream systems, and then turning them into higher added value products, which makes sense for our type of company, and of course then also makes sense to be a player of that type in a region that wants to add value to its resource as well.
You have key investments underway in the US and in China and Singapore. Could you add a little more detail there briefly?
Yes, I can be very, very brief on each of them. So of course, Singapore we have started up only recently. The whole idea is now that we debottleneck that project, add more value to it, basically invest in that new heartland to make it an even more profitable, stronger heartland. The US is actually a story in two parts. First of all, we have a very large footprint in the US in which we will be investing more in order to continue to strengthen that existing base. But then on top of it, we believe that we can do one of these what I called enterprise projects in the Northeast, where we will be, where we have already a major position in unconventional gas acreage, and where we aim to build an integrated value chain all the way from the wellhead to polyethylene and glycols, right at the heart of the demand center in the US. Other projects we have, of course, we just already mentioned Qatar, but this region, as I said, is a very important region for us. So we are continuously looking at opportunities in this region to invest. And of course, there's plenty of opportunities still. If we just look at a place like Iraq, for instance, it's a new province. It's not a large petrochemical player, but it's a large hydrocarbon player. And we, as Shell, have been a leading investor already in the way that we have entered in oil, but also in the South Gas joint venture that we signed a few weeks ago. And of course, the next logical step is how do we do more with that, and how do we make sure that also in the more downstream side we can add value to resources in a country that actually has a tremendous potential for petrochemicals.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben.
You're very welcome.